Here are some life-changing psychology terms that might just explain why a whole lot of stuff goes on in your relationships that you might not have understood before. Number one, triangulation. Now, triangulation is the idea when two people bring in a third party to try to ease or heal some sort of conflict or stress or issue in their dynamic, and kind of just like the points of a triangle, the two form a little bit of coalition and their relationship eases, but the foundation and connection that they're making really is revolved around their mutual antagonizing and mischaracterization of the third point on the triangle. Very hard for the third point on the triangle to be experiencing this, and it common happens in families where one parent might have narcissistic tendencies, meaning they're very egotistical and manipulative in their emotional behavior, and they weave in one of their children to be their kind of coalition person, and then the other children ends up being our second term, the scapegoat. Now, scapegoating is something that happens in some family dynamics, workplaces, any type of social situation or interpersonal relationship, where it's just easier to blame a easier target for all the issues that are going on. Scapegoating occurs in the form of blaming, teasing, creating extra responsibilities for the person who's being scapegoated, and it really ends up being a way to just funnel and channel any discrepancies and issues and underlying deep-rooted problems that are too hard to actually tackle head on, and so it's just easier to push and project everything onto the scapegoat, which feeds into the third term that is handy to learn about, and that's the idea of projection. Now, projection is when somebody takes feelings, negative feelings from a different situation and projects it onto a completely unrelated situation. So let's say somebody has endured childhood trauma in their earlier formative years, and let's say they faced financial hardship and scarcity, or maybe they lost someone really important to them in their life early on. Those emotions, if left unaddressed, will fester and grow and transform and then be projected onto a later target later on in life. Usually this person, it feels like a safe target to be projecting those emotions onto, and sometimes it can even go so far as projection turning into something called displacement. Now, the key difference between projection and displacement is that displacement is when we are literally blaming the person for the negative feeling. So let's say if somebody has depression going on, and we know deep down inside that it is actually caused from their unaddressed grief or their unaddressed wounds of insecurity from having financial hardship growing up, then we know that we're not the actual intended target, yet the other party maybe doesn't have the tools or resources to deal with the actual root cause of the problem. So they will displace blame and say that the scapegoat is the reason for the depression. So all of these terms kind of interconnect, and sometimes we do see them a lot in family systems. We end up seeing them in toxic workplaces. The main takeaway here is that usually people aren't doing this with malicious intent. When there's fighting or conflict or disagreements or some sort of negative outcome, it's usually not for the purpose of trying to actually create intentional harm, but it always just comes back to unmet needs, insecurities, and past traumas. Hopefully that helps shed some light on some of the things you might have experienced in your life. If you have other examples of some patterns or phenomenons that you've noticed, feel free to share them. See you next time.